There's no recipe to the perfect company.
No, not at all. Every industry is different. But I think people do business with people. Even in the age of AI, I still think it's going to be people do business with people.
How does it feel today to be here with SPC, along with your partnership with us?
SPC and RSA have a great partnership. A lot of the supply chain customers we serve, particularly in the e-commerce seller space and food and beverage world, where we basically recommend them to someone like SPC if they want to come in and set up after they've tried the market. SPC is a phenomenal platform for that for them.
You know, in the UAE, there's so many logistic companies. You got thousands of everything over here. How is RSA leveraging this innovation to actually stay ahead of the game?
We are a service-based industry. We build a high-quality asset infrastructure that is unparalleled. We are somebody that speaks your language, understands your business better, and is able to basically be a platform for growth. Your logistics partner should not be treated as a cost center. It should be treated as your growth partner.
RSA Global is shaping the future of supply chain solutions. It's something that's growing, and I'm sure that you're going to be one of the ones that we're going to remember. Welcome back to SBC Spotlight, where we uncover the stories of the most dynamic leaders that are reshaping the UAE's economy. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with someone who has redefined the logistics and the supply chain solutions, Mr. Abhishek Shah, co-founder and group CEO of the RSA Global, and under his leadership, RSA Global has one of the most power horses in the logistics and sustainability and the digital transformation. Abhishek, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
How does it feel today to be here with SPC, along with your partnership with us?
Oh, absolutely fantastic. It's always good to have the opportunity to speak about the RSA journey and to also commend all the great work that the UAE government authorities do. And SPC and RSA have a great partnership. So looking forward to our conversation today.
So I want to know a bit more about, before we dive into how RSA Global really started. So where did you start? Where were you before? How did you get the idea of getting into logistics exactly?
I'm a second generation entrepreneur. I was born and brought up in Nairobi in Kenya, in East Africa. I had a father and a family that was very entrepreneurial. So I was always around the opportunity of business, the opportunity of how do you spot the gap in the market. And we moved to Dubai in 2001, where I was still in school. And right through that period, I was at any point in time on the weekend or during school holidays, I was an assistant to my father, always shadowing him. And I think that was a bug that was built in from a long time, that one day you want to try and create something of value that you can put your name to. So I think that's how it all sort of began, of what to do, that I want to do something. And while I was at university in the UK, I was studying civil engineering. Why I chose that, I don't know. I was just told to pick something that was interesting. And I was living in Dubai and seeing all these buildings grow up in the 2000s. And I thought, hey, I want to learn how they make a building. And that's how I chose civil engineering.
That's very different from what you generally hear. Like when someone picks civil engineering, they want to get into maybe aircrafts or
no. I think I would make a very bad engineer. So never hire me as an engineer. But I was just interested. I think the best advice I ever got was just choose something you're not going to get bored of, because it's 3 long years. It could be 4 years if you do a master's, which is what I ended up doing, and I never got bored of it.
Tell me a bit more about the journey of RSA. How did you have the vision to actually co-found the company? After, you were in the UK, you studied civil engineering, it was something that you felt like, okay, well, you enjoyed it, which was a good thing, but now you've come into the logistics side.
Yeah, so I think the initial seed that was planted was first, as I said, my father was an entrepreneur, and he started building industrial real estate in Dubai in the mid-2000s, when Dubai was really doing very well in its first big phase. I actually graduated with civil engineering with business management. And in one of my business management degrees, there was a case study on supply chain. And I was enamored by the fact that you could produce garments in Vietnam that would end up in Marks and Spencer in the UK, but pre-labeled and pre-priced in Vietnam for 3 or 4 different European markets, with the pounds, with the euros, and everything else there. And I was like, how does that work? And that was the answer, was supply chain. So that's where the bug really bit me of, there's something that's that connected across geographies, across continents, and the data and the supply chain works in this way. So that's what I wanted to learn. And then I went and worked for a year in Singapore, which is a big global hub of logistics and supply chain, where I really learned the variety of different jobs that help that cog and chain work to deliver a supply chain to a customer or a product across from factory to the customer's door. And through that process, my dad and I were discussing what we wanted to do. And he was building more real estate in the industrial space. And I said, why don't we create a brand? And this is where I know he's smarter than me. He basically said, as long as you handle all the employees and the customers. And I was like, of course, that's so easy. But lo and behold, that's where the majority of leadership qualities have to come in place.
100%.
Jokes aside, but that's really how it started. I said, why don't we create a brand? And that's how RSA was sort of born.
So when you were that for 1 year in Singapore, what made you, I know that Singapore is a very big business hub and you're there for a year. Then what brought you back to the UAE? So you were in the UAE, then you're in the UK, then you're in Singapore. So how come you relocated back over here? Is it because the story began over here? Is it because you felt like it would grow over here? What brought your heart back to the UAE?
UAE was home. It's where my friends were. It's where I'd gone to high school. But also, I think it was in economically, it was the most challenging time I think the world had faced. You're probably too young to know that, but 2008 and 9 was the great financial crisis. Dubai, like many other cities, and UAE, like many other countries, was going through their own challenges. So Singapore was not a place that was easy for me to stay in, right? I was not able to secure a job that suited me or what I wanted. But at the same time, we were already working on this business plan back in the UAE. So I think it was a natural fit. Sometimes things happen for a reason. And of course, your parents always want you to come back home. It's nice. They were gone for, I was gone for 4.5, 5 years by that point in time. So they were happy to have me back. So things happen for a reason. And it was just an unbelievable time to be there. Once you are starting at the bottom, because you're just starting a new business in the worst economic conditions, there's only one way to go up, and it's go up, right?
Exactly.
And so it was a great start at that point in time.
It's one of the nice feelings that there's a whole global economic crisis going on. And then you see all these signs of like, okay, this is what I got to do. This is where I need to be. That's where you are today. You took that risk, basically. You could call it of, okay, well, I got to go back. Because sometimes when people are out of the country for so long, they don't have this desire to come back and reshape and rebuild.
Absolutely.
But it was amazing that you had that, and you had that support as well from your family that like, no, come back home, and things do end up working out. Now, I think in the UAE, there's so many logistic companies. You got thousands of everything over here. So you know how it's quite of a competitive market. It's very operational, intensive industry as well. So what are the key factors that you have contributed to the RSA global success?
Any industry here has a significant amount of competition. And UAE is no different because they are trying to become a logistics and trade hub, right? So for that, it's going to attract everybody across, and they've done a phenomenal job at that. We always look at it I like to work in threes. So we build a triangle of what makes us different. At that point in time, when we were just starting out, we looked at three things. It was, how do you build high quality asset infrastructure that is unparalleled? And that is where my civil engineering degree came for a little bit of use, which is great.
So you felt like, okay, great. It's working out.
I knew what they were doing.
So it kind of like a little light bulb that clicked in. You're like, oh, great, I can use my degree.
Coupled with great technology that you have to implement to help understand your customer's business and help provide value to them. And then third is always service. We are a service-based industry. So we have to build the right teams with the right service models to create a great customer experience. So that was our first trifecta that we really wanted to differentiate ourselves with and have the RSA brand associated with in its early years.
And during that time, of course, did you face any certain challenges, based off of this trifecta that you've mentioned? Any certain challenges where you picked up on what to do, what not to do in this type of area?
Plenty. I think my list of mistakes is very, very long, and I don't shy away from them at all. But time you get a few things wrong. So first, you try to grow sometimes too fast. Sometimes you don't build all of the processes that you need to service a certain type of customer or a certain type of business. And I think these are all the war wounds you need, that if I was experienced and I was to start a business today, I would not do many of those things that I did then. But that's the whole element of experience and life, and being a co-founder of a business at the age of 22. You don't really have much there. I had lots of great mentorship. And I think one of the things I tell people is that sometimes, because the economic climate turned so fast into a very positive climate, that you think you're a hero because you're growing, and you don't really realize that it's just the market helping you grow. And only when you hit the next bump do you realize that where your leadership and your structure and your strategy really comes into question.
You've been here for so long. I think we both can say that the UAE has grown immensely. Like, you go away for 6 months and you come back and there's like 5 new buildings on the same highway that they were driving down maybe just 6 months ago. So in your perspective, how do you feel about the future of logistics and supply chain? So for example, the global supply chain has many disruptions in the past recent years, as you can probably see. How has RSA adapted to these challenges? Because, you can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know how it's going to be in the market. The market is always fluctuating.
But I've been doing this for about 15, 16 years now. But in that time, I think, there's almost 2 very significant moments that have changed, in my view, the world's opinion of what supply chains are. Before, it was a fairly behind the scenes industry. It was always because of you need to build big facilities. You go outside the cities where real estate is more affordable. So it's sort of outside of the glamour and the focus, the dirty job, doing trucking, transporting, storing stuff, lugging boxes around. But the key moment came in COVID when I think everybody realized the importance of supply chains to keep the world moving, to keep everybody supplied. Just before that, it was already starting to become, for lack of a better word, a sexy industry with final mile logistics and the e-commerce world and everything else building up into that. And I think all that now has created a very large amount of respect of what that industry does to keep the world economy moving. And if you ask anybody, even in my generation, I think it's slightly different in your generation, that nobody chose to be in supply chain in my generation. In the generation below us, people are choosing to become supply chain experts and studying to become supply chain experts. Like my generation and above, everyone sort of bumped into that industry some way, shape, or form.
I see that. I see a lot of people just kind of jumping into it without any...
Exactly. So given that that's the trajectory it has taken, and now we're in this new path, the disruptions that have happened since then and continue to happen, whether it be something like a pandemic or something like a Red Sea crisis or something like the Suez Canal crisis, global supply chains have just having to become much more resilient. By resilience, we mean that you need to have the ability to source from multiple parts of the world. You cannot be single sourcing anymore. You want to hold more inventory closer to your markets where your supply is very important. And we see the government take a phenomenal position on this when it came to food security, for example. UAE was an enormous player and leader in how they managed food security during that time to ensure that the residents and citizens of this country always had everything that they needed. And those kind of shocks, I don't think are going to get fewer. In time, we're in a world that's increasingly more moving to a polarized position, and we just don't know what tomorrow could hold. The recent US elections are already creating challenges again that may or surely will impact supply chains in some way, shape, or form. We don't know. So everybody's building flexible and resilient and more closer and tighter supply chains that they can try and basically manipulate overall. Given that, you now need to say, what are my strategies? You have now AI that is changing the way you data and analyze and build more credibility into your systems, as well as you now have many people creating more local production or nearshoring and regional sourcing. I mean, I think these are the things that supply chains now have a chance to adapt to and help and support that industry.
I feel like with that as well, supply chain is growing on different areas now. I feel like people are able to relate more. They're able to dive into the industry more, because before it was a bit more of a subjective area. And now it's become more vast in a way. The way I see it is, I know that when it comes to supply chain and logistics is the sustainability part. Sustainability is a very big focus on logistics today, especially with everything that's going on in the world. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, as I said. What steps do you feel like taking toward greener supply chain solutions? So something that you feel is going to be better, something that's going to be good, something that's going to be sustainable.
Look, I think there's no way around building a sustainable ecosystem. By nature of what supply chains do with air freight, sea freight, road freight, and transportation, you are having a pretty significant carbon footprint through whatever you do. There's no escaping that. I mean, that is a byproduct of what the service is. But having said that, there are many solutions that have been around for a long time and the technology is constantly changing that can help you bring that together. So first is awareness. So these are some things that we do in RSA, right? So first is awareness to our employees of what they can do every day in their lives, in their work and at home to basically recycle more, be more responsible. So I think that's the small 1% a day that can have a compounding effect. Then as an organization, we'd have much larger strategies. So for example, from 2017, as soon as regulations allowed it in the country, we've started to do a lot of solar projects on all of our real estate that we have in our warehouses. So that is not only helping us create green energy, it is actually economically viable for us. And we are offsetting our carbon footprint to a certain degree. Another big strategy that we do is we do a lot of water recycling plants, sewage treatment plants that are all on site before it gets given to the waste management companies. So you're now using the same water at least 4 times before it basically goes back out in all our cleaning processes and in all of our heavy power consumption. It's like frozen cooling plants, etc. So things like this all help in making sure that we're educating. And currently now we're running pilots because, again, technology has caught up. It's become commercially viable on electric vehicles, but for the commercial use of cargo, because that is something that can help further reduce our carbon footprint. So I think all these things are a part of journeys that you have to go through. The ecosystem itself has to build and develop. Regulation has to catch up to that. And all of that's part of how we all have to work together. As an industry, we compete, but we have to collaborate. And that's a big part of how we've grown in partnership through our business. One saying I've always had is going green isn't necessarily expensive. It actually, in the long term, is economically viable.
So when you talk about going green, when did this idea occur to you that this was a good idea? It was something that's actually going to be good for the future, good for RSA? Because, there's many different opinions on going green. As you mentioned, you think it's expensive because you're installing solar panels and all these things. Where did you feel like, okay, well, it might be something now, but it's going to be much better later, even as you mentioned, in recycling water and all these things?
Yeah, so I think by nature of being a very energy intensive and operations intensive organization and operation, you're always looking at opportunities of what you can do. It starts with the mindset of how you grow up. What's the management team you build? What are the sustainability initiatives you set as an organization? So it starts from all the way at the top of your governance of your business. Is this important to you, right? And that's how you sort of build these strategies out. So one of our values in the business is to be health, safety, security, environment, and quality masters, right? So that's basically built into the fabric of the DNA of the behavior we want to build into our business. So it's basically who we are. And our purpose statement as business is solving challenges for a better tomorrow. And the better tomorrow piece means leaving the world in a better place than we found it when we started this business, right? So this is how we are sort of operating. Nothing has really to do with supply chain in particular, but it's building that ecosystem and that ethos of how we want to operate.
We've got a lot of technology as compared to when you first started. Now the technology is coming in. We've got AI. We've got all these different resources that you don't even have to use your brain at this point. Now you just have to open AI, you type something in, you got it in front of you. As you work in logistics, do you feel the technology really transforming? You've got AI to automation. So how is RSA leveraging this innovation to actually stay ahead of the game?
One of the things that always, when you're comparing to other parts of the world, Dubai and the UAE are a global hub. So you got to compare to other hubs like Singapore and Rotterdam and London. Those places have a different challenge to what we have here. They have increasing labor supply issues and very rising cost of labor. So for them, warehouse automation is a very easier economic business case to pass because labor supply is aging, it's much more expensive, and the environment is slightly different. The UAE is slightly different from that. We are very lucky, and it's not an advantage that will stay forever, but it's still an advantage today, where our labor supply is very positive. So we don't need to go very high and vertical and automated, but it still helps you to bring your cost per unit down. So you see more and more buildings moving that way. And that automation is slowly creeping in. We do a lot of e-commerce fulfillment. That is where you have a heavy technology play because it's not that you're filling a truck every day, you're filling and fulfilling thousands of parcels per day going to different parts of the world, right? So technology is there because the type of operation has also changed. Coming to the topic AI, I'm personally very passionate about the topic just purely because one statement that I've heard in the last 6 months regarding it has really stuck with me and it's something I'm really driving, is that any person leading a team given all the AI tools coming up and coming up in the future, the pace that's coming up, should expect the output of a team from an individual in the future. So that output increase, that of multiple fold that is to be expected of every person, not because we're expecting you to do more work. We have to be trained on how to make these agents and these AI tools work for you so that you use your brain for much more value-added things. And I think that is magnificent. So think about the output as a business operator, as a leader you could do. And I think that really excites me, right? It is something I'm dedicating more and more self-learning time, and I encourage everybody else to, that you must learn on your own. Nobody can teach you about this, right? You can go for a course, but by the time you finish the course, there's already something out. You're already outdated. So you have to have that internal drive and inner element that I will learn and see how it's going to impact my life and then share. And I think those things put together of hard automation, sustainability, and things like AI are going to dramatically increase our productivity, but also what we view as our individual roles as business leaders.
So, with AI, I like how I finally met someone who's actually using it correctly. Instead of doing it and relying on it, you're actually using it to save you time. So you're using that extra time instead of thinking and having to plan. You've got AI to do that for you, but then you've got yourself to actually do things that would really require your attention. As you've got AI, you've got all these different technologies now with logistics and everything that's happening, everything that you've got going on at RSA. As compared to before and as compared to now, how do you feel that technology is impacting in both ways? Do you feel it negatively? Do you think it positively? In such an industry, how do you feel that technology has strengthened?
So one of the things about the supply chain industry is it is heavily disorganized industry, in the sense that to move a package or a shipment from point A to point B, it is very likely that between 7 to 12 different intermediaries have had to be involved. It's because of the complexity. Every country is different to enter it. It's got different rules and regulations. You got documentation, you got paperwork, you got a shipping line, you got a trucking company, you got an airline, you got all these people in the middle to get it going. What does that mean? There's a huge amount of human coordination that by nature is required to basically move this inventory around, right? Because goods from one place to another. So all these tools are only going to help ensure that we have smoother communication, collaboration, and transparency between all those parties. The application could be in 100 different ways that each company might choose to do it differently, but that's what you're going to really end up solving. Value-added task of having somebody sending an email, hey, please update me on the shipment, or hey, has this been cleared? All those things will start getting automated. So then that's not value accretive conversation. That is purely transactional information that needs to be updated into a database somewhere to give somebody visibility so that they can take a business decision.
Exactly. So they know what to do next.
Exactly. So now that person's job then starts becoming into now, hey, if there's going to be a delay, how do I now inform my customer in advance, start doing contingency planning so that his production, for example, doesn't get stopped, as an example, right? So I think that's where I think that changes. So technology is always going to be good from that point of view. There's going to be a negative application to any technology in the world that comes up, but you need to look at the 95% positive that comes with that. At least that's my personal view.
Things that are becoming more automated, you kind of have a bit more visibility in having to chase people. What's happening with this? What's happening with that? Where is this? Where is that? Now you've got the beauty of these tools to actually smoother your processes, to make things quicker, to focus on other things in the business rather than having to think about all the 7 steps that you've got. So as a leader, how do you balance growth, operational efficiency, and team motivation in a fast-paced industry? Because you've mentioned all these things. You're in a very fast-paced country and you're in a very fast-paced industry. So how do you do it all?
Everything comes with what are your daily rituals. Having a balanced view of the world is a very important aspect to that. Fitness is a big part of who I am. I have 3 daughters, so I love spending time with them. They give me a lot of energy and motivation, and they're my sort of inspiration of what tomorrow can be, right? I really do live by that statement that is a purpose statement of a company of solving challenges for a better tomorrow. I want a better tomorrow for them. But when it comes to the professional side, building an A-class team, there is no substitute to that. The power of having a team that is in sync, that is humming and purring all in the same way and rowing in the same direction, working towards the same goal, is one of the hardest things you can imagine to do. Because finding the right talent, the right mix of people that all believe in the same mission that you're trying to build is not as easy as I would like it to be. But once you get that, in those phases, the amount of achievement that can be built out, and that's my role. My role is tell them where we're going, right? And build the right people together that are way better than I am, but make sure they complement each other, right? And then build it out to that. And once you kind of have that working, you'll see that the amount of ability to meet your strategic objectives, motivate employees to basically say, here's what we're doing, we're an exciting place to be. Because every employer is competing for talent, right? You have to create an employer brand. Today at RSA, we do like to think that we are a desirable place to come and pursue your career, learn, and develop yourself with skills. So I think that really is the number one thing. Build a great team. And there's no substitute to building a great company. Building a well-run business with a great team, everything else will solve itself.
There's no recipe to the perfect company.
No, not at all. Every industry is different. But I think people do business with people. Even in the age of AI, I still think it's going to be people do business with people. And I think they're the ones that have to build the brand, build the mission, and actually end up delivering phenomenal value.
100%. And I like how you think about it in a way where it starts from a personal level into the business, because I feel like on a personal level, if you don't have this sanity in you and you don't have this drive in you, then it's so difficult to implement it on your business on a daily basis, to actually wake up in the morning and feel, okay, I'm going to go to work and I'm going to motivate my team and we're going to grow, we're going to do this. It's very difficult as a person to have this positive drive every day. And it's amazing how you've got these factors at home. You have these factors within you where you want to do it. You like what you do. You have your motivation around you. You want, okay, well, this is for them and this is what I want to do. And it's not every day where people are like this, because it's hard nowadays. Now,
but don't get me wrong. I mean, there are rough days.
Oh, 100%.
There are rough days and rough weeks where you want to give up. You want to give up, right? You want to give up, because I mean, that's the nature of how everything works. Not everything goes to your day, but exactly, it's in those tough moments where you kind of remember why you're doing all this and what tomorrow could bring. And then sometimes when you're running in a city that's this fast, right, or in a country that's moving this quickly, you actually forget what you've achieved. You never take a step back to celebrate the successes with the team, with yourself, right? And it's so important to sometimes say, guys, hey, we still got to achieve this next milestone, but take a deep breath, listen to what you've done, achieve what you've done, celebrate it, be proud of what we've done, but now get back to it, right? Because the world is moving that fast. Our customers aren't waiting. They expect more. And we are a demand-focused company.
It's very important to recognize your milestones and work towards the next ones. And a lot of people, the thing is, when you're in a business, you want more and more and more. And it's a really good thing that you've got with your team where, okay, we've done good, let's celebrate, and then let's work towards the next milestone. Because I've seen many businesses nowadays where you're never satisfied. And I'm sure this happens to many people where you're not satisfied. And then you have to take a step back and you think, no, I've come this far, we're doing great. And you kind of look back onto where you started. You look at the hurdles. You kind of go on a zigzag. You're trying to put the picture together on how did it start? How is it going? Okay, this happened, that happened. But you need to recognize. It's very, very important to recognize. And I tell this to everyone that don't forget where you started. Don't forget anything. Don't skip celebrating a milestone. Because then the team motivation is not there. If they don't feel recognized as well, they're going to be, oh, okay. But having that area where you tell them, no, we did it, we're doing it. And it's that positive thing that also makes them feel like they're a part of the business, not just working for it, but they feel that they've grown something alongside with you.
Absolutely.
And that's really important, I think. And I think that's really amazing. Let's jump into free zones because we know you with SPC free zone. So I want to actually understand a bit more. Many businesses look to free zones as a launch pad for growth. Meaning this is where they want to start their businesses, this is where they want to change their life, this is where they want to take the risk. How do you see SPC Free Zone supporting the logistics sector and startups entering the market now in this time?
I'll take a step back first and just talk about UAE free zones as a whole concept. I tell many people that there is probably no other country in the world where I would have been able to build the business the way we have done and become a UAE brand that's gone internationally and sort of grown abroad. And a lot of that did come down to the fact that even though, 15, 16 years ago, even 20 years ago, law of the land was you had to have certain local ownership to run certain kind of businesses. And free zones were these areas where you could come and be 100% foreign owned. And when you're starting something for the first time and you're not familiar with how things sort of work in a different market, it can be a bit unnerving to, have different partners that are not really equity partners, etc., whatever it might be. So free zones provided this perfect launchpad that allowed everybody to come in. And as an entrepreneur like myself, it was about comfort and peace of mind. But as a multinational coming in here, it met their corporate policy. So free zones in general were a phenomenal product that was created, that has built out. And like I said, again, RSA could not have been created at the scale and the speed at which we have done in any other country in the world, in my view, right? So I think that is a testament to what you can really do, given these sorts of free zones and the regulations that they have put in place. Now coming towards SPC. So we've had a great partnership with SPC where a lot of the supply chain customers we serve, particularly in the e-commerce seller space and the food and beverage world, where we basically recommend them to someone like SPC if they want to come in and set up after they've tried the market. Because we are trying to enable trade and become a market entry support. Sometimes they want to just test the Middle East market. They hold inventory here before they come and do a full-fledged setup. So once they see that they've tested the market out and they now want to set up their own trade license so that they can import their material and goods or whatever, SPC is a phenomenal platform for that for them. So I think it's great. And in return, we always tell SPC, hey, anybody needs supply chain solutions? We're there, right? So we'd love to help them and help them understand how they can navigate the entire region through a partner such as us. So I think it's great to have that opportunity. This free zone concept has been super successful. And I think the UAE has been a pioneer in that as a model for other countries globally.
If you could give one piece of advice to entrepreneurs looking for logistics solutions, logistics solutions have been around for a while. What's that one piece of advice that you would give and what would it be?
Yeah, logistics and supply chain is a very broad word. I think the main element to understand is that today there is almost a high element of specialization in logistics, right? Like there is in nearly everything else. Understand what industry you fit into. Are you, for example, in homeware versus food and beverage or frozen logistics or petrochemical logistics or even just doing e-commerce fulfillment? Each one of those, you'll find somebody in the market that is suited towards you. Search for that specialized player because I think today, the broad nature of the industry, there is a lot more specialization happening and you'll find somebody that speaks your language, understands your business better, and is able to basically be a platform for growth. Your logistics partner should not be treated as a cost center. It should be treated as your growth partner to help you enable getting faster to market overall. And I think those two pieces of advice is what I would give to anybody. So treat it not as a cost, as a growth area, and find the specialized player for your particular industry and type of product and business.
So you say this now, but when you actually came in, so you came in at 22, right? Into the company.
Yes.
What's one piece of advice that you wish someone gave to you back then? Or maybe they have given it to you and it's stuck with you until now, 20 years later.
It was quite a tumultuous time. You came into a very tough economic climate. I think the one thing, looking back, that I would tell my 22-year-old self, focus on securing home market first before you try to go international expansion. So I tried to go back to my origin country where I grew up, into Kenya, and that was a complete failure. So I think I hadn't built a management bench strength. I hadn't built a product portfolio that I could really understand, build, and develop and support an international organization, right? So I think that was securing home market first, building that bench strength, and then sort of branch out beyond that would be something I would tell my 22-year-old self.
And is it something that you feel like has stuck with you, that you kind of...
I treat every experience or failure like that as a very a good learning opportunity that I've been able to, resonate on today. But the question is, all those are very expensive learning opportunities. So you don't want to keep having a very expensive bill of learning opportunities, right? More and more that I can get more experienced people on board. Like I said, my management team is way, way more experienced than I am. I'm generally the youngest in my management team. So that means that they've all done it before. I tell them my biggest disadvantage is the only thing I've done in my life is build RSA. You guys have a breadth of experience in other companies. You should be coming and guiding on what we should do next, right? And I think that's really the element of how you bring experience to the table to build a world-class team.
It's been amazing having you on SPC Spotlight. Your insights on logistic, innovation, and leadership especially has been truly inspiring, not just to the people who I'm sure are listening, but also to me. I didn't know too much about logistics and supply chain until I heard it from you, to be honest.
I'm glad.
I really appreciate you being here, and I wish nothing but the best for RSA Global to actually reshaping the future with the logistics solutions that you're providing.
Thank you so much. Thank you to SPC and yourself for being a great host. I really enjoyed the conversation as well. Thank you so much.